Hi, this is Dr. San Abdullah with the course Web Applications Programming. And the topic which we are covering is JavaScript programming. And as per the topic list, this is topic number 11. So we have topic 11A also. That 11A covered some of the basic stuff of JavaScript programming, basic example. And 11B, we have more than the question and answer which were there in 11A. And they also cover some interesting and challenging concepts and interesting coding examples also, which you will find very useful. And like other videos, this video also uses the supplemental website of easymcq.com /go get, which is a personalized learning management system. And it has many features, and some of those features are listed on the screen in front of you, along with the URL where the videos are available so that you know about those features. In a nutshell, it has strong search capability, basic search and advanced search, which is not there in other popular learning management systems, which I would not like to take their name. So you can perform flexible search and you can perform search by fixing the order of the keywords also. For example, data structure unordered versus data structure ordered. So the number of results vary. And of course, the results are also highlighted. And then is the visual disability support. If the user has some visual disability, then the user can set the font size, color, line spacing, and so on, so as to make that person comfortable with the desired environment. So that is not there in many popular learning management systems. And then there is the hierarchy. So the all the content is presented in a very organized manner so as to facilitate your learning. First is the statement. You click on the statement, you see the bullets about that statement, and then you look at the detailed answer about those bullets are explained. And then there could be a diagram if needed, and there are references also. And then of course you can also test yourself. There are practice exams, practice quizzes which are graded, which tells you the correct answer and which also explain the solution to you. And you can take those exams multiple times and it is all recorded. The average is presented, the analysis is done for you. And then the content is designed in such a manner that it works with different types of devices, a tablet or a laptop or a PC or a mobile phone, and even if the mobile phone is rotated. And then of course you can track your progress also, that what you have done, what you have not done, so that you know what needs to be done. And of course that helps in assimilation of knowledge. Now the approach, the learning approach adopted in this course and all the courses which are using this learning management system is the question and answer based approach. So the concepts are presented in the form of a question, and then you are challenged to answer that question. So what is the advantage is it's a proactive approach. So it challenges you, unlike just a passive approach of presenting something and then going into some description and so on. Number one is that advantage. Number two is engaging. It is kind of an interactive approach. The system asks you a question and you come up with the answer, and you look at the explanation, and then you in the process you learn also. And of course this is in an adaptability is there. And because we are directly looking at the real world problems, and those real world problems are presented in the form of questions. And of course it's the critical thinking also, it's not a passive approach. Critical thinking, and we are much better than machines in thinking. So therefore this approach is adopted of thinking, right? Challenging you to think. And of course then there's the advantages of traditional approach also, when facts have to be presented. So this approach which we have adopted here is the best of both worlds. So this is the topic list, and we are at topic number 11 right here, JavaScript programming. And this topic is presented in the form of 13 questions and answers, and every question and answer is a concept. So you can see by the color coding that first we will cover 11A, shown in yellow color, and then we'll be covering 11B, which is in shown in blue color. And of course we will go into detail of all of these things. And now we move on to the supplemental website from here. So now we look at in detail the question and answers, or the concepts, for the topic we are covering, which is 11B. So how does JavaScript handle select boxes and check boxes and radio buttons? Of course, we can be using a combination of them, and I mean, of course, there are other options also. So this is more of a code-oriented concept. So what we have as is accessing the select boxes. Accessing the select boxes. So how it is done using JavaScript? There is an element for which is document.get element by ID, or query selector. Okay, so that we'll look into the details. And what happens that there is the select element that entirely selects the elements which can be manipulated, okay, through this option, value or the select index properties that we will look into it, okay. And then is modifying options in the select boxes. So this is a very powerful feature, and using this feature you can add, you can remove, or you can update under option elements in a select, okay. And how it is done using the DOM methods. And what are those methods? Those methods are add, remove, or you can directly manipulate the options array. Then is the third one, getting selected option in select boxes. So what we have is that the currently selected option is accessed, which you have been selected, and how it is accessed using the value property, or you can also reference it using select.options, okay. And why you do that? To retrieve the display text of the selected option. Now this may not be making a lot of sense right now, but when we look at the code and when you run the code actually, then it will become very clear. So this is just to give you an idea what is going to come across. And then is accessing and modifying checkbox states. Number 4. So what JavaScript does, it checks the state of the checkboxes using the checked property. So that is being checked, and of course that is done in almost real time. And using JavaScript, you can read or set this property. And when you set it, it can be true or false to determine or change whether the checkbox is selected or not. So we have that group, and we have the group of checkboxes, and you can set the properties. And then is the radio button states, okay. So radio buttons are accessed via the name or ID, right? And of course JavaScript uses the checked property similar to the checkboxes to determine or set which radio button in a group, okay, is selected, ensuring that only one remains active at a time. So if we look at the description, right, and all of this has been explained here, right? And this is the code. You can copy this code in a page and run that PHP page, and that page is going to generate that PHP page is going to generate something like this. So now you see that all of these results, they are generated at the client side in your, and your browser has generated them, right? So this is what I was explaining earlier. So you select a color and it says that which color you have selected. So this is not a page call, and this is not a value being passed to the another page and then that page is being refreshed. That's not the case. And then you select the option of subscribe the newsletter, and this is checked, and you select the major. So we have the checkbox here, we have the drop down menu here, and we have the radio buttons here. So one of them is selected and it is listed. And of course, if I submit the button, then it will take the corresponding action. And that corresponding action could be calling a page where it gets further processed, or maybe that is going to be used to retrieve data from a database. Okay. So this is how. So I would suggest that for all the code which is in PDF, I would suggest that you copy that code, paste into a PHP page, and then run it. Now, one thing we you should be careful about is that this is with reference to the date. Okay, this date. So please, when you copy paste, I would strongly urge you to remove the date. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's going to hold the running, and it will be very difficult to debug. So please remove this date. All right, so we move on to the next Q&A. How client-side validation using JavaScript is different from HTML. Okay, so what is validation? Validation is there, say for example, if we are entering or sending the data to the server, right? So the validation part is there to check whether that it complies with the requirement. So one of the validation could be that in the age field, the age is entered and it's not a negative number, right? Or in the name field, a number is not entered. In the email field, and email is entered, and so on. So, what is the client-side validation, which is different among HTML from JavaScript? So, HTML form validation, okay, it has like very primitive built-in validation attributes, okay, like type and pattern, and it is very fairly easy to implement. But it is limited to predefined validation rules. Predefined rules. With JavaScript, you can create your own rules, and the the messages which you get when those primitives are violated, those messages are very they don't carry a lot of information. It's very difficult to comprehend them. So that is not the case for JavaScript. For JavaScript form validation, right? So you can have your custom validation logic because you can do programming. HTML is not for programming, okay? And you can use event handlers also in JavaScript. So, and what is the end result? It provides checking conditions beyond the capabilities of HTML. And what is the result? It gives full control over how, okay, and when form inputs are validated before submission. How and when. There's no how and when over here. Limitation of HTML validation. There are many limitations, which I of course discussed in more detail. So it cannot handle complex logic, HTML. There are no dynamic conditions. Okay, there's no programming. There are no cross-field dependencies, right? And HTML also does not provides a lot of styling. Is limited styling, is limited customization, and there is limited validation behavior, and there is limited feedback messages. So there are a lot of things which are limited in HTML validation. So why we go for JavaScript? Because of the flexibility of JavaScript validation, right? So what does JavaScript provides us? It allows complete control over validation. This I already mentioned. And what is that complete control? That complete control consists of custom rules. That complete control consists of dynamic conditions, asynchronous checks. Example: username availability. Okay, asynchronous checks, and it also provides integration with APIs or databases. Okay, for real time validation checking. So what we can say is that there's hardly any comparison of HTML validation with JavaScript validation. Of course, you can do very primitive and very basic validation using HTML, right? And finally is error handling and custom messages. So HTML shows generic and browser controlled messages, right? That is not the case for JavaScript, which allows the developers, right, to display styled, to display user friendly and context specific error messages. And what is the result? The result is that it improves the clarity and it improves the user experience during the form completion and during the form validation. So that results in user engagement. So if you are able to capture the user, okay, make the user stay on your web application, then of course you can offer the user many things, convert the user, right? So these bullets are discussed here in more detail, what I have mentioned, okay? And if you're interested in more, here are the references. All right. So the next question is also code oriented. So we will look at the code. So give three typical examples of using JavaScript along with code and explanation. Okay. So so this is basically these are those three examples: form validation. So we'll go into more detail, and DOM elements, and of course handling events with button clicks. So these are those applications, right? Three applications, okay. And over here the code is given, all right. So we have the code here, and you can I would again suggest you to use that code and copy this code, right? So first is this form. So let me uh, okay. So first we have form validation, okay. Then we have handling the events, right? So okay, so these are the examples which I would suggest that you do, all right. So form validation, and then handling events, and of course manipulating the DOM elements, all right. So what happens in these three applications? Let me zoom out. All right. So in form validation, uh, what is generally done in form validation using JavaScript is to validate the form inputs. And when are those validated? They are validated. We are talking here about this. They are validated before submission, right? And the required fields are checked. Required means that you must enter it. For example, maybe if the phone number is required, must enter the phone number, or if the email address is required, must enter the email address. Checking for required for correct formats. So like email or phone numbers. So there's an at sign, and then there are other extensions to the right of the at sign, and so on. And the password strength, that it has to have that many digits and uppercase and lowercase, special characters, numeric. So this is part of form validation, okay. And the confirming the values, that the age is greater than, I don't know, 21 years, whatever. So why we are doing all of this? Because to improve the user experience, number one. Number two is to reduce server side validation errors, and number three is performance also, because sending this all the way over the internet to somewhere and increasing and coming across traffic and then getting those results back, so that takes time. Performance, number one. The other application is manipulating the DOM elements. Okay, so what JavaScript can do is dynamically change the HTML content. So that of course makes your web application very engaging. And not only the HTML content, it can change the style, it can change the attributes. Okay, and how it is done by accessing and modifying the DOM. Okay, for example, it can update text, hide, show sections, change colors, add, remove elements based on the user interaction with the data. So, in a nutshell, that results in a dynamic page. Okay, but remember that dynamic page uh, is 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 uh, is at the client side, done at the client side. Okay, and it is no match with PHP. It is no match with the combination of PHP and SQL, right? So that should be always in your mind. And handling the events, that is the third application. And those events are based upon the button clicks. Those events could be based upon the mouse movement also. So JavaScript responds to the user interactions, such as button clicks, such as mouse movements, such as keyboard input, okay, such as functions executing. So what is the end result? This enables actions. What kind of actions? Like submitting forms, like opening models. Models we've discussed, like pop-up boxes with messages and buttons, toggling the menus, changing the menu content, or updating content in real time. So of course that makes your web page very engaging and very interesting. And of course it depends upon the application also. Now, this is very interesting question. Make a simple ticking clock using only HTML. So, the question is very interesting, right? And the answer is also very interesting. So, because ticking clock cannot be made using HTML, okay? Why? Because HTML has its own limitations. That's the one reason. And then HTML has a static content, right? And number three is that HTML has no time logic. So let's go over these bullets very briefly, and of course the details are given below. So, because HTML, what is the limitation of HTML? That it is a markup language and it is used for structuring the content, not manipulating the content, manipulating as in processing, but structuring the content, right? So, it cannot perform logic, it cannot perform calculations, it cannot perform real time updates. It is not meant for that purpose. It doesn't have that capability. It is like that I have a bicycle and I ask the question that how fast that bicycle you can make it fly. Well, it will never take off. So what's the point of discussing how fast it can fly? Okay. HTML lacks the ability to interact with data. Doesn't have that ability. And to respond dynamically. Okay. To what? To the changes like time progression. Right. It cannot capture time. It cannot process data. It cannot be it cannot be in the knowledge of time. So HTML has limitations. Then is the static content. The static content, any time related content written in HTML is going to be fixed. Okay. And at the moment of the rendering, it was displayed. So a clock made using HTML will always tell the same time. What is the same time? The time at which the page was rendered. So you set a time and you display it. That's time going to be displayed. You change the time and then call the page again. Then whatever you have changed, that's going to be displayed. So without scripting, like using JavaScript, HTML cannot update the display time every second. So what happens? It is not suitable for real time clocks or live updates. And finally, HTML does not have any time logic. Okay, for retrieving or processing the current time or data. Well, C++ has wonderful time logic. You can capture time even at the level of nanoseconds using C++. So you cannot build a clock using HTML. To build a ticking clock, logic is needed. And why you need the logic? To fetch the current time and fetch the current time continuously and update the display, right? And which only JavaScript or similar scripting languages can provide. Now remember one thing. I said that fetch the current time continuously. I did not said calculate the time, fetch the time, because if you calculate the time and that calculation takes say microseconds, so after certain time, as a matter of fact, every calculation is going to add some error, and after a certain amount of time, that error will become noticeable, and so on. All right. So the next of the details are given here, okay? And whatever I have discussed, you can read this, all of this, right? And if you're not satisfied, there's more stuff to read. All right. So using JavaScript, implement a simple client-side search functionality. Okay. So this is again a coding question, and this is basically, this explanation is going to be very similar to any application, right, for which JavaScript works, right? So I'm not going to go into a lot of details of this. So you can read this, okay? And of course, this is how it's going to work. So you can select, search through these items, right? And they are going to be displayed. And I would strongly urge you to copy this code and run it, and be aware of this date. Remove this date when you do a copy paste. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Okay. So these are basically, this part is the coding part, JavaScript programming. So the code is going to be explained. I look at the bullets first for you. So the HTML. So all the applications, they follow this kind of a broad structure. So there is the HTML structure, then is the JavaScript functionality, and then is the styling. So every JavaScript application more or less is going to follow this kind of a structure. So what's in the HTML structure? So it includes an input field, okay, for entering the tasks, okay, and then there could be a add button also, and a container, okay, and we're using a div, right, and tasks are displayed, and each task includes a delete button, right, because you can add or delete the task, and what the purpose, it allows the users to remove it, obviously. And this is a minimal structure, so not more, nothing more about it. And then is the JavaScript functionality. So it is going to this is it's going to have the add button. When it's clicked, it creates a new task element because the button is from HTML, and it appends it to the list dynamically. All right. And each task has a delete button also, and an event listener. There is no event listener in HTML. The event listener in JavaScript that removes the task from the DOM, right, and enable real-time updates without reloading the page, because that's the beauty of it, because if the page is reloaded, it will affect the performance. And then we use CSS for styling, right? CSS for styling and for better usability and appearance, all right? And the tasks and have to be spaced visually, okay? The input buttons have to be styled for clarity, and maybe you would like to add hover effects or animations which enhances and improves interactivity. And of course, the completed or deleted items may have visual indicators which has been removed and which has not been. So if you take a look at this, okay, so yes, so here is the code. So when I can write something here. So I would suggest that you copy this code, right? And if you look at this code, let me explain the code to you also, or let's zoom here. So okay, so here is the styles. So what the body should look like, what should be the task items, colors, okay, button attributes, color of the button, okay, and the hover effect, right? And when it is hovered, then it is dark red, and then again for the task input and so on, and then display the list of tasks, okay, and then we have this function, these are constants here, and then we are asking get the value, right? So please, this is the alert message, enter a task, and then we have those actions, okay. So create a new list item, create the next node for that task, delete, okay, append, and clear. So this is how it is implemented. So when you implement it, this is how it's going to look like. So you can type a task here and click on add task, and that task would appear here with the delete button. And if you delete that, click on the delete button, that will be gone. So there is no backend database. There is business logic, of course, but there is no PHP here. So this is all done using JavaScript. All right. So this is very powerful features of JavaScript, right? Okay. So we have a three-tier application, and that three-tier application has the client tier, the middle or the business tier, and the database tier. So we have HTML and JavaScript at the client tier, and then we have the business tier, which is PHP. So we cannot say that we need to separate them, because that's not possible. They have to work and run together, and they were not meant to, or they were not designed to work together, right? So there are issues. So what are the issues of embedding HTML or JavaScript inside PHP? There are no issues of embedding HTML inside PHP. That's not the issue. But the issue is more with JavaScript and PHP. So what are those issues? Those issues are listed in front of you in those bullets. So I'll go over these bullets and then we'll go over to them in detail. So first is the code readability and maintainability. Now, if you mix together PHP with HTML, that's not an issue. But when you mix, that can be an issue because of the angle brackets also. But mixing PHP and JavaScript, that can lead to very messy code, and that is very hard to read also. And so that is not with reference to the compilation, which we'll talk also, but it becomes difficult to maintain, right? It becomes difficult to maintain, and it becomes difficult also to understand also. And why? Because as the application grows, or when multiple developers are involved. Now, trust me that if when you start with an application in a medium to large environment, then of course it's going to be a big application. Even small applications can be quite complex depending upon the nature of the application itself. So the readability and maintainability is a big issue. Then is the separation of concerns. Separation of concerns. So what is meant by this is that HTML and JavaScript are for presentation. Now, if we embed it with the server logic, which is PHP, then it violates what? It violates the separation of concerns. So what happens is that the code is now less modular, and of course, it is harder to reuse also because it's embedded, and it is harder to test also, and it is harder to scale also, where in component-based applications. So these are the issues. So we are trying to kind of force things, and then we have to face these issues. Then are the security risks. Security risk when the embedding is not proper. So the embedded content can introduce vulnerabilities. What kind of vulnerabilities? For example, cross-site scripting. What kind of vulnerability? Code injection. Okay, especially if the user inputs directly. Okay, without proper sanitization or escaping. So in the code which I'll be sharing with you in lecture number or topic number 15, we do I'll show you the sanitization which is done and make it a standard practice. Then is the difficulty in debugging. So debugging of course becomes more complex when different languages are interwoven, because here we have HTML, we have JavaScript, we have CSS, we have PHP, we have SQL, and all of them are interwoven. Okay, and this is a nightmare to make all of these things to work together. And on top of it, the results should be displayed elegantly, not properly, elegantly. Okay, so and of course that when we have these interwoven languages, then we can have issues also. And trust me, I face those issues, and the biggest problem is to identify. It's very hard to identify the source of the issue. Okay, especially when you have dynamic output, and that dynamic output is spanning across multiple language or multiple contexts within the same application, within the same file, within the same page. So that's a big problem. And and of course, and if these are some logical bugs, then it's even more difficult. So then are the performance issues. What are the performance issues? For example, inline code can reduce performance, right, by increasing page size and the load time, which we discussed in CSS also. And it may also prevent effective caching, and it may also complicate optimization, right, because of the content delivery network use, right? So the performance have to be taken into consideration. And of course, now remember one thing, that over here I have not discussed SQL optimization, which is not part of this course. So that also contributes to performance, which is part of the database course. So if you can go to the main page of this, if you click on the top button over here, and then you go to the home page, there you can type SQL optimization, and probably you get from the databases course. So compatibility with different environments. For example, you have this embedded code, and it may rely on specific configurations of browsers or PHP settings or the platform. So everything has to work together. Now, if there are differences in server setups or client environments or the platform, that can lead to inconsistent behavior, or in worst case, failure across the platforms. So it is a challenge. And remember that every challenge is an opportunity, and there are many challenges here. So there are lots of opportunities for you. So this is the cross-site scripting which I mentioned, and these are the details of those bullets. I would suggest that you read all of this, try to understand. And this is an application, okay? And I will discuss this. It's working also. Give you the code also. So basically, what it is doing, that it is creating a dynamic histogram. And what is a histogram? We'll discuss when we have. So basically, this is also, I believe, topic number 15. That the last subtopic of 15th lecture series, which is about the dynamic application. So creating the dynamic graphs. So if you move this button here, so it kind of changes them based on the calculation. So I would suggest you to take a look at it. So if we this is the okay. So how to embed HTML or JavaScript inside PHP? How do you embed it? So let's look at it. So this is quite challenging, and to debug also. Embedding HTML inside PHP. Okay, well that is not very problematic. HTML can be embedded by using those PHP tags, right? And writing regular HTML. Okay, and then you can close, and this allows easy output of HTML without using echo or print statements. Okay, JavaScript can be embedded like HTML by placing the script tags within or after PHP. Or what you can do is you can use PHP to generate JavaScript code as a string and echo it. That's much better, okay? But that requires better understanding. And then what you can do is allowing dynamic values to be inserted into JavaScript logic. That you can do also. So you can use, for example, if we are creating graphs, so you can call a JavaScript library, or this which I've done in the example, which is the last example of topic number 15. Or the other way is that you generate JavaScript and dynamically fill in the values by reading from the database, right? So using PHP to dynamically generate HTML and JavaScript. So you can use the echo or print output to show the HTML and JavaScript dynamically. And then where you can use the variables and logic to conditionally display the elements. If this, then this, if this, then this. Okay. Create scripts or pass server side data to client side code. So a better way is that you generate your own JavaScript. Okay. And of course, then you have a lot of control on it. And now this is tricky, mixing PHP with JavaScript in HTML output. So you can insert PHP variables directly into JavaScript. How? By echoing them within the script tags. This is useful passing server-side data to client-side code, but it has to be done very carefully to avoid syntax or injection issues. Okay, because PHP is very sensitive to double quotes, so you should be using single quotes, and it is very sensitive to angle brackets, so you should be very careful about them. And the ID which I have used, they don't provide a kind of useful error messages to figure out what the problem is. So you have to be careful about it, and you have to experiment with it, and then you will be learning. So what are the security considerations when embedding HTML or JavaScript in PHP? Always analyze, okay, and sanitize and escape PHP output to prevent what we discussed before was XSS. Okay, what was XSS? Cross-site scripting, to prevent cross-site scripting. Okay, and code injection. Okay, so don't allow raw user input into HTML or JavaScript without proper validation. And that validation you can do using JavaScript. And escaping also, or content security in place, content security policies in place. So you have to be careful about all of these things. And here are the details. Okay, so here you can read this. You're embedding directly. All right, so I have this echoed with the angle bracket. So HTML is directly going in, and dollar name is the variable. Okay, and here I have used a different approach, so using the script tag. All right, and here it's a entirely different approach, right? You can, so I've used an array, and then I am outputting the results and mixing with JavaScript, PHP with JavaScript in HTML output. So I have these are the script tags for the JavaScript, and then I have HTML, and I'm using their combination. And the security considerations are mentioned here. So this is the one which I'm going to explain also. So this is all for JavaScript, and then we move on to the next topic.